Daniyal ma'am. First of all, may I briefly introduce to you our today's resource person. She is currently Professor of Law at Faculty of Law, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Ma'am has around 30 years of teaching experience. She did her BSc honors from Miranda House, University of Delhi. She has completed her LLB and LLM from Campus Law Center, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. She has completed her PhD in comparative study of laws of marriage, divorce, and maintenance relating to Muslim women in the SARC countries from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Ma'am is chairperson of various committees and members of numerous academic bodies. She is also organized many conferences, seminars, and workshops, legal awareness camps, etc. in her academic competency. Apart from participating and presenting papers in various seminars and conferences, she has also authored many books and numerous publications in reputed national and international journals to her credit. Welcome, ma'am, and enlighten us with your valuable and thought provoking lectures. Ma'am, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Junaid, for giving such a nice introduction. I'm really thankful to you. And my topic today is reproductive rights of women. Can we enlarge it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So we have to talk about reproductive rights of women. Actually, this was basically the concept came from US. And to briefly introduce you to this concept, I'll tell you a small incident which I witnessed when I was a child. There was a family where the woman already had six kids, and she was facing a lot of health issues because of childbirth and other things. And she was insisting that the husband, she was telling the husband that she should go for a sterilization. And she became pregnant seventh time. So she kept on insisting, the husband kept on refusing. So what happened at the time of delivery, her mother was there with her, and she granted permission to the hospital staff that she wants to have a sterilization, and the sterilization was done. But when the husband came to know, he was so furious. He said, why did you do that without my consent? I had not allowed it. As if the body of the woman belonged to the husband. So that is basically women being controlled by men. I'm sorry to say that. So the matter came to such a thing that he was ready to divorce her. He said, I don't want to keep her and I am going to divorce her. So people, intervened, and then came to everything became normal after some time. But what I want to tell you is that all this is regarding reproductive rights. When the woman is not, if she has no right to her own body, she has no right to decide when she wants to give birth to a child, she has no right to go for sterilization, she has no right to give her consent. So this is basically the reproductive rights about which we are going to talk today, because majority of the women do not know about these rights, that they have these rights. Even women who are well qualified, maybe they are having all procedures properly, everything is done, but they don't know that they have reproductive rights. And the thing is that where in a society where women are given importance, there the people will understand what are reproductive rights. So there are majority of women, like in villages, like in rural areas, where women do not know what is a condom, what is contraception. If they can only go for sterilization. So that's it. Now coming to this, now reproductive rights are the rights of individuals to decide whether to reproduce and have reproductive health. This may include an individual's right to plan a family. That is what most people do, because now they are becoming aware slowly that they have to plan a family. Terminate a pregnancy if they don't want, if it is they don't want that pregnancy. Because in a number of cases, because people are not using contraception, there are unwanted pregnancies. There are a number of, in certain families where there is no contraception is used, the number of girls, they keep on having girls in the quest for a son. So there are unwanted pregnancies. Just to terminate a pregnancy, this is reproductive right, use of contraceptive, learn about and sex education, and gain access to reproductive health services. Now, there is one more thing, one very small again incident which I am going to tell you is that that women or girls in smaller towns, when they have their periods, they are maybe not using these pads. So what they are using cloth, which cannot be disposed of. So since they are using cloth, you know what, this cloth has to be sanitized, sterilized, that has to be dried up in the sun. Now because these cloths can be visible and can be known that this belongs to this family or this girl, they don't dry up these cloths in sun also. So they are not sterilized properly, which they are using, it cannot be disposed of also. So this is also a problem of reproductive rights. Then, rights of all couples and individuals to decide freely and responsibly the number, spacing, and timing of children. It also includes right to information and means to do so. That is, they should have the highest standards of reproductive health. They have to make decisions concerning reproduction free of discrimination, coercion, and violence. Though there are domestic violence cases, the case which I just now, it actually happened. People are behaving like this. So now we go historically. This reproductive right movement in the US has been going through many controversies due to the moral, ethical, and religious undertones of birth control, abortion, and family planning. Even today, the subject of reproductive rights is an emotional and politically charged issue, especially in the light of new technologies and the recent case laws, which I'll come to when I'm going through the slides. The cases, the abortion law about US. Now, why do you think it is a moral issue? Let's understand this moral issue. And that will also connect us with the case which I just now told you. What is that moral issue? The moral issue is that one view is that that a human person comes into existence at conception. That is, after the child is conceived, it is a human being, and that means abortion means killing that human being. This is one of the view. And the second view is that any regulation of abortion invades a woman's right to control and her body and prevents women from achieving full equality. So these are two very opposite views. Why this is a moral issue? That it means killing a human being. So further, so there is a major controversy raging in the US also, which I will just now refer to. There are, after that abortion has been prohibited by the US Supreme Court by a 6-3 majority, the number of protests are also going on. And maybe there was a statement by the president also that maybe they are going to do something about it. So let's come back to the slides now. Reproductive rights of women, as this slide says, these are a part of fundamental human rights guarantee, which are found in both, number one, the oldest and most accepted human rights network, and the latest and international regional treaties. It's a part of that. As per the 1994 Cairo Conference on Population and Development, that is ICPD, reproductive rights are as follows. Slide, please change the slide. That which I have just now talked about in the introduction, that rests on the basic right of all couples and individuals to decide freely and responsibly the number, spacing, and timing of their children, and to have the information and means to do so, and the right to attain the highest standards of sexual reproductive health. That the right to make decisions concerning reproduction free of discrimination, coercion, and violence. Please change the slide. I'll have to tell you every time, Janet. Next. Next slide, Janet. Please change the slide, Junaid. नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लम हो गई. Please change the slide. So naturally, it is also a repetition, like as reproductive rights are all the same. So we cannot keep on discussing them. So why these reproductive rights are important? Because women are treated as objects of control. There is a patriarchal society, lack of health care, lack of nutrition. There is death by when there is unsafe abortions, maternal mortality, socioeconomic status. There is discrimination on the basis of socioeconomic status, like HIV status, religion, race, caste. So this kind of discrimination is also there, because all these violations impact gender justice and equality of women, and also affect the development of a society, because women are the major part of the world, major part of the society, the community. So if they are impacted, it definitely affect the development of a country. So please change. Now the WHO has also defined reproductive rights in the same manner as I've just now referred to, that reproductive rights are essential to the utilization of all human rights. They encompass a spectrum of civil, political, economic, and social rights, from the right to health and life to the rights of equality and non discrimination, privacy, information, and to be free from torture and ill treatment. Because violation of these reproductive rights disproportionately harm women due to their capacity to get pregnant, whether it is rape or marital rape, or with whether it is unsafe sex, they get pregnant, and that is the basic problem. And legal protection of these rights as human rights is critical to enable gender justice and the equality of women. Next. Now the International Council of Convention on Population Development in 1994 have also they have described what are reproductive rights. So that is, the woman has to decide freely and responsibly the number, spacing, and timing of their children. Now the problem is, because it's a decision is whether to have one child or no child or seven children, that affects the population growth. So that is there is a small rider to it that they cannot go for, because there will be food problem, there will be economic problem, employment problem, everything will be there. So this is with the rider having the information and means to decide freely and responsibly. Same thing. uh, they have the right to be physically, mentally, and socially healthy, with access to medical, mental, and social facilities, services, and support to exercise their sexual and reproductive rights. That is, again, when I said that their decision whether to have no children or seven children is definitely comes with the right. And then it should be the decision of the woman whether she wants to undergo female sterilization or not. It should not be forced on her, because we'll, in the other slides we'll see how it is actually done, how the guidelines are not followed, and what kind of consent these women, there's the incentives, money is being paid to them without informing them about the consequences of this sterilization. Yes, next. Now again, the Beijing Platform for Action 1995 has also referred to these reproductive rights. The promotion of these rights should be the fundamental basis for government and community sponsored policies and programs. Actually, these are a kind of recommendations for all the governments. The government must consider the rights as a fundamental part of the laws it enacts, the policies it puts in place, and the programs it creates. Next. They have been recently incorporated into the International Development Agenda with the adoption of the UN Millennium Development Goals, MGDs, in 2000. The governments have agreed, because of the recommendation, they have agreed that addressing women's reproductive health is key to promoting development in the society. In the document produced at 2005 World Summit, UN General Assembly, the leaders from the world made an explicit commitment to achieving universal access to reproductive health by 2015. Now we are in 2022. So that has to be seen. So this provided yet another method to address women's reproductive health as key to promoting development. And that is very, very essential, because if the mother is not healthy, the society is not healthy. the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, that is the Disability Rights Convention, is the first comprehensive international human rights instrument to specifically identify the right to reproductive and sexual health as a human right. Then the right to a legal remedy. There has to be a right of free speech so that they can talk, they can raise their voices if there is a violation of their rights. There has to be a right to a legal remedy. That is, it should be recognized in all human rights instruments. It is crucial to enable women to vindicate their reproductive rights and hold violators of these rights accountable if they have the right to a legal remedy. That is, reproductive rights are not only secured in human rights instruments, but global recognition and understanding of these rights is growing and deepening. Not only a part of this human rights instrument now, most of the governments are also recognizing that they are actually much more deeper than human rights. Next. Now, there are 12 human rights which comprise reproductive rights as per the Center for Reproductive Rights. Now, some of them I have given in the slide, like right to legal and safe abortion, controls one's reproductive functions, access to make reproductive choices free of coercion, access to education about contraception, sexually transmitted diseases, and freedom from caused sterilization and contraception. Right to protect gender-based practices such as female genital mutilation, right to decide the number and spacing of children, right to health including sexual and reproductive health, right to access sexual and reproductive health, education and family planning information. Yes, next. Now the right to equality in reproductive decisions. Now what happens is that first of all, the woman should they should be able to decide that whether and when to marry, when to start a family. It so happens that when a girl grows up in a society, naturally people start asking the parents, when are they getting your daughter married off? They keep asking the girl, kab tumhari shadi ho rahi hai? And this is also very difficult questions to answer. And not only that, when a couple gets married, maybe they want to have time before starting a family. The parents-in-law and the parents, they all are after their life saying that, why don't you start a family? Why don't you start a family? So they should have a right to decide whether and when to marry and when to start a family. That is, marriage should be with the full, free, informed consent of both the individuals. It should not be a forced decision to get married. Then they have to decide freely and responsibly the number and spacing of their children. There are cases when one child is born, maybe the parents-in-law say, the mother-in-law say, no, go for another soon. So maybe they want a boy and they keep on the number of girls, they keep on having girls maybe. But now at least this thing has changed. The awareness is there that there are people who have single daughters, there are people who have two daughters, and there are people who have three daughters and they don't go for a son. Sorry, there are people like that. Or so much awareness has come because of education. So you have the right to make reproductive decisions when it comes to one's body, health, and family. That women's reproductive autonomy should not be undermined by provisions like spousal consent for access to reproductive health services, because there is in certain cases requirement that the spouse should give a consent, only then they will go ahead with it. Because in one of the cases when the lady went for sterilization, they say you get your spouse first, he has to sign some document. So that is also a problem. So next. This is a right to sexual and reproductive security. That is, it gives the right to have a life free of gender-based violence. There can be violence in the family. There can be violence not only by the husband, but by other male members of the family. That is, there can be sexual violence, incest, trafficking, dowry-related violence, and rape based on the fact that she is a female. Then the right to live a life free of mental harm and violence based on the fact that one is a female. Because if there are cases where when a woman is not able to freely decide the fate of her body, she definitely has a problem with her mental health, and that is also a problem coming up. So next. That is, if they decide to have children, once they decide to have children, that should be in a safe and environment with proper medical care and assistance should be there. If they are using family planning services, they have access to this service in a safe and hygienic environment. Then there has to be a safe motherhood. That a right, they have a right to survive pregnancy. This is one of the cases of the Supreme Court. We'll see in the slides. Nearly 1 lakh women die each year during childbirth as a result of hemorrhage, limited access to hygienic institutional delivery, anemia, malnourishment. A fifth of these pregnancies are unwanted pregnancies. That is, there is no use of contraception. The number of girls or the number of abortions in the quest for a son take place, and that definitely affects the health of the mother. Next. Mr. Junaid, next. Yes, there has to be a right to access to information and education. That is, they have access, they should have a right to access information regarding sexual and reproductive issues so that one can take informed decisions. And that must be in a very clear, complete, and sensitive manner. Because in quite a few societies, a number of issues are a taboo. They cannot be discussed, like menstrual health and abortion, sterilization. All these are a kind of a taboo. So it should no more be a taboo. They should be able to discuss it. And there are, a number of movies have also been made so that people understand what is the importance of menstrual health, what is the importance of contraception. And people have been going to the villages to teach them. And there is a taboo. But still, next. Now, the major reproductive rights issues, what are these? Actually, men and women both have equal stake in human rights, but reproductive rights, they disproportionately impact women. And they become closely linked to women's rights because gender discrimination and inequality set the stage for majority of reproductive rights violations. It is because of these gender discrimination, inequality between men and women, they are basically responsible for the majority of violations of reproductive rights. Now, the issues, what are the issues which have to be dealt with? If we look at India, high maternal mortality, high infant mortality, limited access to contraceptives, because what the people think, they only know one kind of contraception, that is sterilization, female sterilization. Non-existent sexual health education is a taboo. And information, coercive population control policies, again through sterilization, unsafe abortion, rampant child marriages, gender-based discrimination, lack of sex education, HIV, AIDS, and malaria, youth sexual health, right to food, because there is a lot of poverty, malnourishment, anemia amongst mothers, women especially, disability, inequality, limited access to healthcare and antenatal care. Because in a number of cases, what happens is because in some societies, women are not given that much importance. They are only, giving birth to children. So there is absence of healthcare. There's absence of antenatal care. There is absence of postpartum natal care. So that is also a problem. That also affects the health as well as the life of the woman. Next, maternal mortality. Now, what is maternal mortality? It is the number of maternal deaths for every 1 lakh live births. Vast majority is preventable as there are 3 preventable delays which can be done. The 3 preventable delays which take place because of which maternal mortality rate goes up. Number 1, an initial delay in obtaining antenatal health care. Number 2, a delay in reaching care. Number 3, a delay in receiving care. Now, I'll give you one incident. When we say delay in reaching care, because there are some very remote areas where there are no medical facilities available. There was a case of a village which was separated from another village by a river, and there was no bridge over that, and there were pictures of men carrying a woman on a cart, and she was in labor pain. She was being taken to the other side of the river because there was no bridge available for them to take her. So that takes a lot of time. And again, I'm sorry, what happens to the woman if she is already in so much pain? So women health is not a priority in certain cases. They do not have freedom or opportunity to seek out care. They maybe in certain cases they cannot tell them that she needs a care. She has having a problem. She needs to be taken to the hospital. So there are cases. Healthcare is non-existent and maybe not available to them. Yes, next. Now abortion. I'll give you some more idea about this. Now, when again maternal mortality, when there is a delivery or an emergency occurs, there is poor infrastructure, unavailable or costly transportation. That is which I just now told you. And at the medical facility, what happens is there is inadequate staff, absence of facilities, supplies, lack of hygiene. It contributes to maternal health. That is, there is discrimination on the basis of HIV status, discrimination on the basis of their race, caste, sex, or religion basis. So all these problems do take place in those facilities. Now, to combat maternal mortality, the government of India has introduced the National Rural Health Mission, which I will just now refer to in my further slides. That is accompanying, there are other schemes as well apart from this NHRM to strongly promote and institutionalize delivery. That is, it should take place in some cases where though no medical facility, they take the delivery takes at home with the help of a dai, and she is not trained also. She doesn't have the facilities because the things which she are using, maybe they are not rust free also. That is also a big problem. It causes all kinds of problems. Yeah, infections are caused. So now coming to abortion. Now termination of pregnancy is a safe and should be a safe and simple procedure. 1/5 of pregnancies in India are unwanted or unplanned. In India, 2/3 of all abortions are unsafe, leading to deaths. And because of this, these unsafe abortions, they are significant contribution to maternal mortality rate. Now further, now what happens? Unsafe abortions result into deaths when the medical termination of pregnancies are performed in an environment which does not meet the Indian public health standards. That is, because in a number of cases what happens when there are unwanted pregnancies, or maybe when maybe unmarried people have unsafe sex and they become pregnant. Now they want to maintain confidentiality. Patient wants to maintain confidentiality. They do not want to reveal their identity. So what happens? It takes place in an unhygienic environment. And moreover, there are inadequate access to quality abortions. So that also results in abortion taking place in an unsafe and unhygienic manner because of these problems as well. So there is a need for sex education in schools also. It should be there. It should not be a taboo. Then next, coercive population control. Now this is the according to them, in the population control, they are coerced to go for sterilization, and as sterilization is considered as a number one form of birth control in India, because they have access to no other forms of birth control. They are not aware, or maybe they do not want to use it. I'm sorry, the males do not want to use it, the condoms. So it is a most widely used form of contraception. It targets and incentivizes coercion. They have their targets too. They have to achieve their targets. They are incentivizing abortion. Maybe they are being paid money. And not only that, they are in the being done in an unsafe environment. There are no informed consent. For example, there are cases In Ramakant Rai versus Union of India, the Supreme Court has ruled that Government of India, after the ruling, the Government of India has developed extensive guidelines for sterilization in 2006. That is used extensively in marginalized communities. Most sterilization are taking place in the public sector. Consent forms are not signed by them. They maybe do not know how to sign it, or maybe they're if they are putting their hand. So they are not read out to him, they are not explained to him, they are not told about the consequences of this sterilization, they are not told that this is a permanent form of sterilization. And after the sterilization, the guidelines which are supposed to be followed are not followed. That is, they are told to go home after 4 hours. Maybe some of them are not even able to walk properly, and they are told that if you have a problem, you can take this medicine. And not only that, they are never told that if you have a problem, you come to us. So this is the way sterilization, this is coercive population control is going on. That is, they are not following the government guidelines also. And there is a discrimination of HIV positive people, AIDS people, because I have seen in one of the major public hospital in Delhi, where they had come for sterilization, and when the woman, because they don't उनको वो बेहोश नहीं करते हैं, because it happened in one of the cases when they had given her the thing, and the woman in her sleep only, she expired. So what did these people do? They keep them awake and they do the procedure while they are awake. So one of them, she ran away. She was, because in so much pain was there, she ran away, and the जो वहाँ की warden थी, nurse थी, head warden, she slapped her so many times. So because of their socio-economic status, they are basically very poor people who are going there. So how these people are treated? Do you think they will follow the guidelines which are given by the government of India? They don't. Because in our country, the most important problem of all laws is implementation. Because implementation is done by human beings. So that is the main problem. So next. Now the key points, maybe that will just be a repetition. Prevention of safe motherhood services and infant care during and after pregnancy, prevention of unsafe abortion, management of the consequence of unsafe abortion. So you can change the slide, please. Next. Now let's see what are the legal protections available. First of all, we have all seen, you must all be knowing about the Constitution of India, because that is the basic protection is the Constitution of India. Just a moment. Sorry. So first of all, this is Article 21, the right to life. I will not read the Article 21, as you must all be knowing the most important article of the Constitution. That is the right to health. The Supreme Court of India held that Article 21 includes right to health, because a violation of this right leads to maternal death, right to be free from torture and inhuman treatment. That is, a violation leads to forced abortion, right to shelter. Violation leads to homeless, pregnant, and lactating women, right to privacy, right to dignity. That will be coercive female sterilization. Next, please. Now, continuing with the Constitution of India, there is Article 14, that is right to equal access to the law. Article 15, the right to live without discrimination. Yes, next. There are other legal protections in India, that is the directive principles of state policy. Like the relevant ones are Article 42, provision for just and human conditions of work and maternity leave. Article 47 announces the state's duty to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living and to improve public health. Now, coming to the legislations, which are very important, is this, first of all, is the Indian Penal Code 1860. That is section 375 to 376 deal with rape and sexual assault. Section 312 deals with offenses causing miscarriages and injury to unborn persons. And the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act is an exception to laws which prohibit harm to the fetus and unborn children. That is 312. MTP is an exception to 312. Now, coming to the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, it allows qualified doctors to perform abortions for women in clinics and hospitals. The act allows abortions in specific situations. That is, we'll just come to it in the next few slides about the MTPs. And
Ma'am, your mic is muted. Yes.
I don't know when it kab hua?
Just now.
Just now. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. So the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, the 1994. Then you have the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, the Maternity Benefit Act 1961. All these are legislations which are a kind of legal protection against violations of reproductive rights. It guarantees maternity leave to all the women employed in the government sector. This act ensures continuation of employment after pregnancy and allows maternity leave in case of miscarriage. It allows maternity leave also in case of miscarriage, medical termination of pregnancy, or tubectomy. Now, there are a number of schemes and policies which are related to reproductive rights. As I just now told you, that the government of India brought these national schemes like the National Rural Health Mission. Now, first of all, let's look at the National Rural Health Mission. Now, this is the government of India launched the National Rural Health Mission in 2005 with the goal of providing availability of access to quality health and care by people, especially for those residing in rural areas, the poor, women and children, through equitable, affordable, accountable and effective primary health care. Now, this is basically this National Rural Health Mission. It wants states to reduce their maternal mortality rate to 100 out of 1 lakh live births. And the government has converted this National Rural Health Mission to National Health Mission. Government of India has converted this. Now, under that, there is a 3-tier level of care has obligations which are outlined below. There are 3-tier system under the National Rural Health Mission. Number 1 is the sub-health centers. Next, please. Seven. It's there. Sub-health centers and the sub-health centers. Please, Junaid, please. I'm sorry, please. No, आगे पीछे ले जाइए, पीछे. The sub-health centers, they have early registration of all pregnancies, ideally within the first trimester, they have to be registered. Then minimum of 4 antenatal checkups. Then associated general services such as collection of weight and blood pressure, provision of supplements to the expecting mother, vaccines, treatment of anemia, identification of high-risk pregnancy. So all this is under the sub-health centers. Then we have the primary health centers. That is, they are all these services which are available under the sub-health center are there in the primary health centers also. That is it also has a duty of implementation of Janani Suraksha Yojana, which is in the next slide, the Janani Suraksha Yojana. Then full coverage of maternal diseases, health conditions, 24-hour emergency care, including delivery services for both normal and assisted deliveries. Family, there's so many benefits have been given under this, and people are availing those benefits, and because of this the maternal mortality rate has also come down. Then the third one is the community health centers. Under that, again, all the services available under the primary health centers are also available under the community health centers. That is, full range of family planning services, safe abortion, blood bank, essential laboratory services, and essential and emergency obstetric care. So all these are they are running very well in the rural areas. And please, next. Next, the Janani Suraksha Yojana. Now, this is again, it's a core component of the NHRM, and it aims to reduce maternal mortality by encouraging institutionalized deliveries. It is a 100% centrally funded scheme, and this scheme provides financial assistance to all BPL families, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, women who obtain antenatal care. They undergo institutionalized deliveries, and they seek postpartum care. They receive a cash incentive of rupees 600 to rupees 1400, depending on the state and the rural or the urban area. Now, coming to the National Maternal Benefit Scheme, the next one. This is again, it provides a cash assistance of rupees 500 to a pregnant women from below poverty line families. Now, that this scheme has been brought in by the government to ensure that pregnant BPL women have access to food and nutrition leading up to delivery. So there is care before while the woman is pregnant. Although the just a minute. The Janani Shishu Suraksha Karikram. The next one is the Janani Shishu Suraksha Karikram. It involves the infant also. That is, it pledges to provide women who deliver in government hospitals with free medical care, diagnostic services, blood supplies, medicines, food, and travel. It is a heavily subsidized scheme, whether there is a normal delivery or a C-section, everything is free. Then additional care services to the mother for 42 days following the birth, and for the newborn for 30 days following delivery. So, and then we have the Integrated Child Development Services scheme, which is again, they are all providing all kind of package services to the children. This is basically for the children. That is, uh, they have, if they have a problem of malnutrition, morbidity, reduced learning capacity, and mortality in early childhood. So they are all providing all kinds of preschool and non-formal education, referral services, nutrition, and health education. So this is all for the various schemes which provide for the mother and the child. Now, coming to the private sector, the private sector has tried to, they are not following these schemes, they are not under these schemes because they are a private sector, but they are taking advantage of gaps in public health care. What happens is that families who can barely afford medical care opt to deliver in private facilities to avoid the substandard and undignified conditions in public facilities. So the public also understand that if they go to these public facilities, there are substandard and undignified conditions, unhygienic conditions are there. So women collect their Janani Suraksha Yojana financial assistance regardless of whether the delivery takes place in a public or private facility. They have their delivery in a private facility and they later go and collect their financial assistance under the Janani Suraksha Yojana. That is also, the private are also benefiting, and the women are also benefiting. So next. So under the international law, India is a signatory to international conventions. It has a legal duty to protect, promote, and respect reproductive rights. Now, they have identified 12 internationally recognized human rights encompassing reproductive rights, which we have just now discussed in the earlier slides. The Supreme Court has confirmed India's international human rights obligations in the Apparel Export Promotion Council versus Chopra. Article 51 of the Constitution confirms the importance of ensuring respect for international law and treaties. Next. Now, coming to the judicial recognition and reproductive rights as fundamental human rights. Now, these courts have done a great job. They have tried to bridge the gaps wherever maybe the schemes were not working, the legal protections were not available. The courts have, in a number of decisions, they have tried their best to give their decisions. And in the last slides, I'm going to discuss the present decisions of the Kerala High Court and the Delhi High Court on abortion. So the Supreme Court of India and several state high courts have made important strides in recognizing the denial of reproductive rights as violations of women and girls' fundamental rights and human rights. And they have played a strong role in preventing and addressing ongoing violations of these rights. जुनैद, कितना टाइम है मेरे पास?
Ma'am, you have time. No problem.
Time
No
है?
issue. Yeah.
अच्छा, चलिए. Okay. So next. So first of all, let's see these cases by the Delhi High Court on maternal health. In 2001, in the case of Lakshmi Mandal versus Deen Dayal Harinagar Hospital and others, and Zaitoon versus Maternity Home MCD Jangpura and others, these women were living below the poverty line were being denied maternal health care. They went to the court, and the court stated that these petitions focus on two inalienable survival rights that form part of the right to life. That is the right to health and the reproductive rights of the mother. These are part of Article 21, two inalienable rights. Now, they quote citing CEDAW and the Convention on the CEDAW and ICESCR, the decisions held that no woman, more so a pregnant woman, should be denied the facility of treatment at any stage, irrespective of her social and economic background. That is where the inalienable right to health, which is so inherent in the right to life, gets enforced. Yes, next. In another case on maternal health in 2012, the High Court of Madhya Pradesh echoed the Delhi High Court's judgment. In Sandesh Bansal versus Union of India, the court held it was a public interest litigation seeking accountability for maternal deaths. The court held that the inability of women to survive pregnancy and childbirth violates her fundamental right to live as guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. And it is the primary duty of the government to ensure that every woman survives pregnancy and childbirth. Yes. Now, Center for Health and Resource Management and versus State of Bihar and others. Now, you must have heard or maybe seen images on the TV that where the women after delivery in the ward, there is maybe the leakage, seepage of water, there is flooding of water, there are dogs roaming about. There was a case of a dog snatching away a newborn child, and maybe the mother was not aware. So all these things have to be monitored. They're not monitored. Nobody cares. There was no infrastructure available. There is no incubator available. In one of the cases, there was no incubator, and the child got burnt because it was a newborn child. It was burnt because of the heater. So, denial of maternal health care in Bihar. The violations are collection of fees by doctors and nurses for referrals and registration of pregnancy. They were taking money. Dilapidated and unsanitary health facilities without electricity, without toilets, running water and blood supplies, lack of transportation services for pregnant women, lack of safe abortion services, lack of grievance redressal system for violations suffered, resulting in maternal deaths. Now, the problem is that not only in smaller towns, there are cases where even in big hospitals, like the public hospitals, I'm talking of public hospitals, government hospitals, where the facilities are not working. When we did OT is not working, this is not working, that is, you take it to take the patient to some other hospital. So it also takes place. And there are very clear images of people taking their women in labor pain, not only which I told you just now, ठेलों पे ले जाते हैं लोग उनको, because there is no transportation. Somebody dies, the woman dies in delivery, there is no ambulance available. She is being taken on a thela by the husband, or maybe carrying on his shoulder. So where are the facilities? So it was that Bihar government has obligation to ensure access to maternal health services under the Constitution of India and international human rights law. Now, it is not only the Bihar government. It is basically, I think that every government has a duty to do this. Why only talk about Bihar? Because somebody filed a case against the Bihar government. Yes, please go ahead. Now, regarding contraceptive access, In 2016, the Supreme Court issued a judgment in the case of Devika Biswas, a very important judgment versus Union of India, that moved beyond the reproductive health framework to also recognize women's autonomy and gender equality as core elements of women's constitutionally protected reproductive rights. Claims of violation of reproductive rights and arising from coercive and substandard sterilization and lack of access to the full range of contraceptive methods have been brought before the Supreme Court of India and High Courts for over a decade. In Devika Biswas, the Supreme Court established that state policies and programs leading to sterilization abuse violate women's fundamental and human rights. This decision marks a significant step forward from past Supreme Court cases which have justified violations of reproductive autonomy due to concerns about population growth. Because earlier it was happens that when we say that all these reproductive rights have to be ensured, then that will also lead to population growth. So that was also a problem earlier in the Supreme Court. So they further said Article 20 includes the ठीक. The Article 21 includes the reproductive rights of a person. Reproductive rights as both part of the right to health as well as an aspect of personal liberty under Article 21, and defines such rights to include the right to access a range of reproductive health information, goods, facilities, and services to enable individuals to make informed, free, and responsible decisions about their reproductive behavior. The freedom of choice to exercise these reproductive rights would include the right to make a choice regarding sterilization on the basis of informed consent and free from any form of coercion. There should be no coercion. Maybe people forcing her to go for sterilization, or maybe forcing her not to go for sterilization. It should be her own decision. Yes, next. The further Supreme Court said that the obligation to ensure the reproductive freedoms of economically and socially marginalized groups, expressing concern that informal targets which have to be achieved by the government and incentives, like some of them are paid money to attract them to come for sterilization without realizing the impact of that sterilization on their lives, have deprived them of any meaningful choice. Yes, next. Then the Delhi High Court issued two decisions in 2010 and this is about child marriage actually. Framing child marriage as a violation of human rights. Now, they expressed concern that child marriage typically involves young, vulnerable girls and exposes them to domestic violence, sexual abuse, social isolation, underscoring that child marriage is a violation of the right to hold a life free of freedom, life of freedom and dignity. What happens in case of child marriage is the girl is so young, maybe that is also there are certain schemes when they say let her grow first and then only marry her. But despite the fact there are so many child marriages take place, and what happens if the husband dies? Now at least we have the Widows Remarriage Act now, but what used to happen earlier, she used to lead a life of isolation, and today also it becomes a stigma. Once she is becomes a widow, people don't allow her in any function, saying that is a bad omen for them. So it is a problem for the child. She got married when she was so young, and then she has to bear the consequences later on. Then further, next, they also noted the impact of lack of education on married girls, stating that it limits girls' knowledge about sexual relations and reproduction, which is compounded by cultural silence concerning reproductive and sexual health. They're not allowed to speak culturally. It is said, no, kisi ko pata na chale. You should not talk about it. Nobody should know about it. And denies them the ability to make informed decisions about health, sexual relations, and family planning. Find that the court has recognized that child marriage results in an unrelenting cycle of gender inequality, sickness, and poverty. Next. Now, in the case of M. Muhammad Abbas, was the Chief Secretary, the Madras High Court in 2011 and in 2015, that was M. Abbas 2015, an important decision establishing child marriage as a violation of girls' fundamental rights under Article 14 and 15 of the Constitution. That is, they said that the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, establishing 18 as the minimum legal age of marriage for girls, supersedes personal laws without violating Article 25. Rather, the rule emphasizes that under CEDAW, fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, girls should be empowered and that child marriage is not in the girl's interest. So next, now in case of abortion and forced pregnancy, the case is Suchita Srivastav and another versus Chandigarh Administration 2009 Supreme Court. The court held that there is no doubt that a woman's right to make reproductive choices is also a dimension of public liberty, personal liberty, as understood under Article 21. Then we come to the cases of Dr. Mangla Dogra and another versus Anil Kumar Malhotra, Ajay Kumar Pasricha and others versus Anil Kumar Malhotra and others. These are basically of the Punjab and Haryana High Court in 2011. The court held that it is the personal right of a woman to give birth to a child. Nobody can interfere in the personal decision of the wife to carry on or to abort her pregnancy. Unwanted pregnancy would naturally affect the mental health of the pregnant woman. Next. In the case of Hallo B versus State of Madhya Pradesh and others, 2013, the court held, we cannot force a victim of violent rape, forced sex to give birth to a child of a rapist. The anguish and the humiliation which the petitioner is suffering daily will certainly cause a grave injury to her mental health. It was basically the petition by a rape victim to get her child aborted. Next. Then the case of Ms. X versus Union of India and others, and Chandrakant Jayantilal Suthar versus State of Gujarat 2015, that they have been cases have been filed nationwide seeking interpretation of Section 5 of the MTP Act, which explicitly allows abortion to save the life of a pregnant woman, to also permit abortion past 20 weeks on health grounds in case of rape or fatal impairment. So the Supreme Court has ruled 3 times to permit abortion in individual cases past 20 weeks where medical panels found that forcing the woman to continue the pregnancy would pose risk to their mental and physical health. Yes, please, next. Then the case of Meera Santosh Pal and others versus Union of India 2017, that is the right to bodily integrity and reproductive autonomy permit her to preserve her own life against the avoidable danger to it. The Supreme Court clarified that 24 weeks, abortion at 24 weeks is legal in the case of anencephaly, where there is the part of the skull is missing. So this is a fatal impairment that also endangers the pregnant woman's life. The next, own motion was the state of Maharashtra in 2016. The Bombay High Court has held that improving women prisoners' access to abortion has strongly affirmed women's. Yes, unborn fetus is not an entity with human rights. The pregnancy takes place within the body of a woman and has profound effects on her health. So they're treating it as an it's not an entity with human rights. Like we come to the moral issue, which we are just not talking. The right to control their own body and fertility and motherhood choices should be left to the women alone. Let us not lose sight of the basic right of women, the right to autonomy and to decide what to do with their own bodies, including whether or not to get pregnant and stay pregnant. Yes.
Ma'am, your mic is muted.
When did it get muted? Abhi?
But just now. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. मेरा हाथ लग गया होगा. Sorry. Dunabai state of Madhya Pradesh and others. This is 2012. It's a fact finding in a tribal area. An Adivasi woman had no choice but to give birth outside a hospital after repeated denials of medical treatment. She was denied medical treatment, so she gave birth to the child outside the hospital. So the government health facilities functioned without blood supply, emergency services, obstetric facilities, basic medicines, and adequate staff. Now further, next, Priya Kale versus Government of NCT Delhi and others in 2016. They published 2013 January, the Times of India published an article about Priya Kale, a homeless woman who lost her baby to exposure after she delivered on the balcony of the homeless shelter where she lived. Again, no facilities available, no transportation available, no healthcare is available. A fact finding was conducted at the shelter. Families, including pregnant women, lived in absolute squalor and struggled to provide food to their families. The petition was filed asking the court to issue immediate interim orders in the case for maternal health care, heaters, extreme cold was there, hot water heaters for bathing, 3 meals a day for all residents. Look, we have to go to the court to make them do all this. Sorry. Next. Kalpana Mehta, Union of India, 2018. In this case, in 2019, the state governments of Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat, they, injected the human papilloma virus vaccine to over 24,000 adolescent girls because they were hailing from extreme marginalized communities and were not provided with full and informed consent before receiving the same. The petitioners have asked for compensation and medical follow-up for the girls and for the licenses of the products to be suspended until proper scientific and legal procedures are guaranteed. Yes, next. Now come to the recent case of abortion. Now, in July only, it has come. The Delhi High Court division bench, they refused to allow a 25-year-old unmarried girl to undergo medical termination of pregnancy at 23 weeks and 5 days. Because that, the court held, it virtually amounts to killing the fetus. Because in the legislation, it purposively excluded consensual relationship from the category of cases where termination is permissible after 20 weeks and up to 24 weeks. It was a case of consensual relationship which is not allowed. That is, the court held, it has been purposively excluded consensual relationship from the category of cases where termination is permissible after 20 weeks and up to 24 weeks under section 3. The High Court observed that it is not permitted under the abortion law after 24 weeks for pregnancy arising out of a consensual relationship. So this was a case of a consensual relationship which was not allowed. Then come to a case of Kerala High Court. Immediately came after a few days of the Delhi High Court. It said that it was a case of a minor rape victim. She was 24 weeks pregnant, 15-year-old. The Kerala High Court has given permission to terminate 24 weeks pregnancy of a 15-year-old rape victim at a government hospital and directed to constitute a medical team for the procedure. Further, the Kerala High Court said that if the baby is alive at birth, the hospital shall ensure that the baby is offered the best medical treatment. And maybe if the child is born, if the mother doesn't want to keep the child, she can give it for adoption. So that was the Kerala High Court. Yes. Now come to the present controversy in United States of America. In 1973, in Joe versus Wade, it was ruled that abortion should be allowed up to the point of fetal viability. That is the time after which a fetus can survive outside the womb. At the time of judgment, fetal viability was around 28 weeks, that is 7 months. That this particular case, a very famous case, it made abortion a constitutional right in America. Now, what happened now? With a 6-3 majority, the US Supreme Court in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, they overruled Roe versus Wade. The decision gave individual states the choice of banning or allowing abortions. Estimated that legislatures in 22 states would almost certainly move to ban or substantially restrict abortion. It has been held to be curtailment of women's rights and their status as free and equal citizens by the dissenting judges. They have held that. Now, the protests are going on in America right now because people want that this kind of judgment should be taken back. And there are cases of a minor girl, a rape victim. She had to travel from one state to another. The state, Ohio, where she was a resident, abortion was not allowed. So she had to go to Indiana state for getting an abortion. So even the president of America is discussing, he gave a statement about this. So now it is a controversy which is going on, abortion or no abortion. Yes, please. Next. Now, what is the importance of reproductive rights? Because women are treated as objects of control, healthcare absence, maternal mortality, infant mortalities, lack of awareness about safe sex, lack of hygiene, lack of facilities. Now, creating awareness, because when this kind of impact is taking place on more than half of the population of the world, then the reproductive rights become very important, that they have to be, ultimately it is also said that if the women are healthy, it is definitely leads to development. All right. Creating awareness about reproductive rights is very important for the growth and development of the country, as it impacts more than half the population of the country. Yes, next. The conclusion is the judicial decisions illustrate the significant and evolving role the judiciary can play in India to address the legal and practical barriers which operate to deny women and girls their reproductive rights. You have now already seen that uh, despite there so many laws available, despite the so many schemes are available, but still you have to see the state of these facilities where there is all the facilities are missing with the medical care facilities. All these facilities are missing despite the fact that there is judgments are there, the schemes are there, the laws are there. So definitely judiciary is playing a definitely very important role in this. But what becomes more important, and it is most important in India, is the problem of implementation. The Supreme Court cannot implement its own decision, is the decision of the executive. But what happens is this has to be taken care of. While litigation has its challenges, including long-term frames and difficulty in implementation of decisions, the robust recognition of reproductive rights as fundamental rights emerging from Indian courts has created a mandate for the government to shift away from population control approaches, confront discriminatory stereotypes that limit women's authority, and instead center women's rights to dignity, autonomy, and bodily integrity in reproductive health related laws and policies. Next. Judiciary also has a key role to play in monitoring implementation of existing decisions. The legal guarantees articulated in the judgment discussed above create a strong call to action for the judiciary to continue to defend and uphold women's reproductive rights, defined to include both reproductive health and autonomy, including for marginalized populations in upcoming litigation. Now, apart from all this, all uh, the legislation, the Constitution of India, the legislations, the schemes, and the national schemes, state schemes, the judiciary. What is most important is awareness amongst the people. There has to be awareness and change of mindset of the people, which does not want to let go the concept of women are as treated as objects. They have no rights. They are controlled by the males, whether before marriage or after marriage. So this has to change. For when we say implementation, this is why implementation is a problem, because our stereotypes are there in our minds. We all behave like that. I'm sorry. It is not basically whether you are qualified or not qualified. We all have that thing in our mind, the stereotypes, the mindset, the lack of awareness, the problem of not letting go. That is the main problem. So that has to be tackled at our level. We have to do that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this informative, detailed lecture. Ma'am, if you may allow, our attendees have some questions.
Yes.
Ma'am, one of our attendee had asked the questions relating to Roe versus Wade case. Do you agree that Roe versus Wade is a regressive judgment as alleged by Western media? We had an incident in United States where a girl underwent 5 abortions by the time she was 18-year-old. Abortion rights have social and moral implication as well. How to control misuses of abortion rights?
The thing is that wherever some rights are given, they are also always misused. But these are only exceptions. If abortion is required, if somebody needs it, then it should be allowed. And why people are misusing it? They should not be allowed to misuse it. So I'm saying that barring exceptions, abortion should be allowed in particular circumstances where there is a need for it. It is not just so rampant like you are just now telling about that girl. This is वो तो कहते हैं अपवाद है वो. You cannot treat them as the main thing. Most of the people will not do it because maybe she doesn't have any responsibility, no accountability, so she is doing it. Maybe she should be told about safe sex also. She should be, made aware about safe sex also. If she wants to go for this thing, having sex, I'm sorry, then she should also be made aware about the safe sex. And what I'm saying again is that these kind of cases which you are talking of are exceptional cases. If abortion is a need of the day, it should be allowed. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, next question. Whether sex education should be made compulsory in school curriculum?
No, in higher classes, because there also there are chances of misuse. There are also chances of misuse. What the purpose is basically to educate them that they, if they go for all this, they are curious. They want to, go and find out everything. So they have to do it in a very, they have to be very careful about it. So it should be given in higher classes, and that too by very sensitive teachers.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Once a great man said, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a gift and not giving it. On behalf of Faculty of Law, Integral University, I would like to thank Professor Kahkashan ma'am, who graced us with her thought-provoking and lucid lecture on reproductive rights of women. I'm sure that participants will have a lot to take away from this lecture. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Most welcome, Junaid. I'm really thankful to you for giving me this opportunity, for interacting with you and for interacting with
Ma'am,
your participants.
it's my pleasure. Thank you,
It's a
ma'am.
pleasure for me also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.